UFO means unidentified flying object. Okay? Oh, I just have to bask in the majesty of that image.
People are saying, oh, I don't trust science. I mean, science this. It's like, do you know what we do?
What are we made of? The most common ingredients in the universe.
One thing that a lot of people are talking about lately, and NASA even now has a head of UFOs, right? Congress has a hearing on UFOs. And so people were talking about UFOs and aliens in a more serious way than being on the front of the National Enquirer, the way it used to be. So a Mexican journalist displayed bodies of two supposed non-human beings in front of the Congress in Mexico, okay? Each with three-fingered hands and elongated heads. Now, before we all mock the video, right? Because it's gotten a lot of mocking. It looks a lot like ET. But as I said, NASA just announced for the first time a director of research on UFOs. So they are taking this overall topic more seriously. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I like what they did in Mexico. They had what they claimed are alien bodies, and they brought it out in front of their Congress. That's better than leaving them in a locked box and saying you and no one else can get to see them. So that's a start. But in science, a new truth, an objective truth, is only established when multiple labs can analyze whatever your claim is. When we brought rocks back from the moon, we distributed them to all the labs of the world. So everybody participated in that discovery. So here, bring out samples to others and let other people, skeptical people in other labs, test this. They'll either verify it or falsify it, and then we move on. What
was your reaction when you saw the images?
I was surprised because if they're from another planet, why do they look so human? They have two eyes, a nose, a mouth, shoulders, hips, femur, a rib. Why? Most life on Earth shares DNA in common with us. It looks nothing like us. So how could somebody? So that was my first thought. Second, any corpses or mummified remains, there's no bone in your nose. It's an open hole into your skull. These aliens have intact noses, if indeed that is their nose, I don't know for sure. That's odd after 2,000 years to still have a nose with two cavities in it. So that's odd, but they should share it. That's how we determine what is true and what is not.
The Department of Defense released videos showing what it says is an unidentified flying object. And the pilot who witnessed this describes what he saw to CNN.
Well, the first thing is it had no wings, so you think, okay, it's a helicopter. Well, there's no rotor wash in the water. There's no rotors. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
And so explain what you see on that video.
Well, so people, I think, have conflated the concept of a UFO with whether we're visited by aliens. UFO means unidentified flying object. This is a highly non-specific term.
Yeah.
It is so non-specific, it admits you don't know what you're looking at.
But what's driving that thing if not a space alien?
It's unidentified.
Okay.
So
that's not good enough.
Well, so the universe brims with mysteries. And so just because you don't know what it is you're looking at doesn't mean it's intelligent aliens visiting from another planet.
Yes.
You just said you don't know what you're looking at. So it's not, you cannot, as a next sentence, say, therefore it must be anything.
Yes, but you know what we're looking at. You stare at the cosmos for a living.
I'm not authorized to go beyond this part.
Wow.
You're in.
But we're serious.
No, a couple of things. Just
what do you see?
Consider what made people interested in this is that it involved the Pentagon and $22 million, or whatever the figure was. Consider, by the way, that's $22 million over 5 years, and the Pentagon's budget is huge. So how much of the Pentagon budget is that? It's 0.0001% of the Pentagon budget. So A. B, it's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out. I would hope there's a program of our Defense Department to make sure they do not pose a threat. And sure enough, that's what that program was.
But it just buzzed away. They didn't know what it was.
Of course.
We still don't know. It's a mystery.
We still don't know.
But hold on.
And I'm cool with that.
Okay, that's where we differ. You're cool with letting that.
Scientists live in mystery every day of our lives. there is the circle of knowledge that we have, and then there is beyond that circle is the unknown. And even as the perimeter of that knowledge grows, okay, as the area of the knowledge grows, so does the perimeter of our ignorance. All right, because it's touching this wider and wider area.
Okay, I understand.
So
But
people are uncomfortable not knowing, not the scientist. I'm fine. We don't know what it is. Keep checking it out.
Okay,
Go
but hold
Call
on
me,
a second. There's
call
another
me
question.
when you have dinner invite from an alien.
That's
a
so
different
you're
conversation.
skeptical. You're skeptical that space aliens have visited Earth.
The evidence is so paltry for aliens to visit Earth. I have no further interest. Let other people who care go ahead. And then when you finally find some aliens, bring them into Times Square. No, there are too many weird people.
I think that's happened.
You would not stand out in Times Square.
Right.
And try not to come back during Comic-Con when the alien would just blend in. Go to the county fair or something where there's a uniformity of who's there. And then and everybody's got a high definition video camera on them now. We have video footage of rare things that you knew happened, but no one saw it happen, like buses tumbling in tornadoes. In the day, you didn't say, "Oh, that bus is about to tumble. Let me go back and get my video camera to film this." No, you got your tail out of there. Everybody's got a video camera. I'm just waiting for images of people visiting, having tea with aliens on the spacecraft.
But you do acknowledge that carbon is not a rare substance, and
It
there
is
must be
everywhere in the universe.
carbon-based life forms out there somewhere.
If there's life
right?
elsewhere, it is likely based on carbon, not only because carbon is abundant, but it is highly versatile in what kinds of molecules it makes. And if you need the diversity of life, is enabled and empowered by the diversity of the molecules carbon
But do you
can give
think there's intelligent life out there?
I would first start with that question on Earth. You set me up for that. No, so the question is, have aliens visited and just kept going because there was no sign of intelligent life? We've used our... Who defined us as intelligent? We did. Okay. So is that some cosmic measure of intelligence? Perhaps not. And so who are we to say? I'm just saying, it seems to me, aliens who visited us, they would manifest more convincingly than fuzzy video. And there's no reason to assume that because you don't know what you're looking at, it equals aliens that visited us from outer space. I'm glad the Pentagon was looking at this, because if it posed a threat, I want them on top of it right away. And otherwise, and the program is closed down, and it said, okay, not a threat.
In your book, you use the device of saying, what would an alien say?
Yes.
If they came here to Earth from outer space,
Yeah.
and they saw our wars, our politics, as you say, our inability to distinguish fact from opinion. So what do you think said alien would say?
So the alien comes upon Earth, beautiful blue marble, orbiting the sun, and there's oceans and land and clouds. And then they learn that there's a species that has spread itself across all of the land. They saw that's a very productive, very successful species. And then they come down and they say, oh, wait a minute, that same species has drawn lines on this otherwise contiguous set of land masses, and these lines, you can't cross them unless you have special papers. Not only that, they've divided themselves by who they worship, what their skin color is, what how they dress, where resources are and where they're not, on a level where they will even commit violence, even all-out war. And so the aliens say, really? Isn't it just one species? Isn't it just one planet? Isn't the land all contiguous? What the hell is wrong with you? They'd run back to their home planet and declare there's no sign of intelligent life on Earth.
But
I'm certain that's what the aliens would think.
But we do have real differences. We do have serious differences between nations, between political parties. Are we just supposed to say from a cosmic perspective they don't matter?
No. In fact, the differences enrich the plurality of a nation, especially of a free nation. So no, I don't want to get rid of differences. I want to get rid of differences that at their fundamental level are not different. You think they're different because you've dug your heels into some opinion that is malformed based on what you think is true. That's different from us agreeing what is objectively true and then sitting down and say, oh, what do you think about this? And then you share your point of view with me, as do I. And you say, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Oh, is there a way we can resolve this? But when you fight over it, the only reason why you would fight over a difference of an opinion is because you are certain your opinion is correct and that of who you're arguing with is wrong.
You have carved out a unique place for yourself in our intellectual life these days. And I don't know if you're going to object to this, I would describe it as the pop scientist. Here you are on one of your many shows, Cosmos, Possible Worlds. Take a look.
Every month represents about 1 billion years. Every day represents nearly 40 million years. That first day of the cosmic year began with the Big Bang, almost 14 billion years ago. Nothing really happened in our neck of the universe until about 3 billion years later, March 15th of the cosmic year, when our Milky Way galaxy began to form.
How did you decide on this role, and do you get pushback from, and I say this advisedly, serious scientists?
That pop scientist role had already been carved by Carl Sagan, and whatever sort of blood on the tracks that left. I remembered hearing about this, that he was chastised by some of his colleagues for appearing on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And this is a show that had huge reach into the tax-paying public. And why I say tax-paying, because NASA and the National Science Foundation and other funding agencies get their money from the electorate, and that's what pays for the research that we do. So at some level, we have a duty, if not an obligation, to bring some of that back to the public. So they objected that it was so pop. But then you realize at the end, our fellow scientists that realize, oh, they're applying for some grant or something, and that their representative in Congress says, wait a minute, is that about you going to research what I just saw Carl Sagan talk about? Yeah, that's a good idea. And so, yes, I do this. Keep in mind, my title is Director of New York City's Hayden Planetarium, which has a built-in fact that you're going to be taking this, some, if not all of this, to the public. And yeah, when I'm writing a book, I'm not doing the research paper, right? So there's a trade-off often in that. But no, I still have strong taproots into the research community.
Neil, for people who say we've seen pictures of the moon before, why is this so special? I guess I shouldn't ask that type of question because who cares what they think? No, I'm just kidding. But this is an extraordinary thing that's taking place right now. It really is, isn't it?
Personally, I think it should have happened decades ago. It's been 50 years. 50, count them, since we left low Earth orbit. That was the 1972 Apollo 17 mission that went to the moon, walked on the moon, returned to Earth. We haven't left low Earth orbit since then. So for me, it's a long time coming that this should have been happening decades ago. So for me, it's not, yes, of course, we've seen pictures from the moon, but it's communicating something else, that we are redoubling our efforts to turn space into our backyard. And that, I think overall, that's a good thing for civilization, because to think that Earth is the only thing we should ever think about and care about when we're this dot in the middle of this vast universe, which has unlimited resources, unlimited discovery that could ultimately come back and help what our problems are here on Earth, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I mean, we were just talking to Scott Kelly about this. He's going to be talking to the Ukrainians about radiation vest technology that's used in space and applying it on the ground in Ukraine to try to protect the people there in case there's some sort of Chernobyl type of incident. So you're absolutely right about that. And all of this brings to mind the words of astronomer Carl Sagan when he wrote of Earth as a pale blue dot. He said, look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us on it. Everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. These new images, they really do put things in perspective.
Yeah, because when you go into space, especially deep space, and you see Earth there, not as you learned it in your schoolroom globe with color-coded countries. No, it's as nature intended you to see it, with mountains and land and clouds and oceans, and that can change you. I have this diabolical plan where I get Elon to build a space bus. There's the Airbus company that make a space bus, cram all the warring leaders of the world onto that bus, send them out to the moon, and have them gaze upon Earth and contemplate what their hegemonistic motives ever meant or would mean going forward. Because here we are together, alone, and once again, to quote Carl, with no hint that help from elsewhere is going to come to save us from ourselves. We are in this bathtub together called Earth. And so space can change you for the better.
And let's talk about Mars. Scott was talking about Mars. I want to talk about Mars with you. The hunt for life beyond Earth, the Mars rover dug up some intriguing clues, finding signs of a watery past, rocks loaded with the kind of organic molecules that form the building blocks of life. I hope I have that right. How significant is that?
Yeah, so this continues to affirm the possibility, let me even say likelihood, that the prevalence of water elsewhere, not just on Earth, the prevalence of organic molecules elsewhere, not just on Earth. By the way, we found organic molecules in meteors, meteorites that have been found here on Earth that fell from space. So all the basic ingredients are there. And the question is, what kind of spark is necessary? Spark is a very loose word I'm using there, to go from inanimate organic molecules to self-replicating life. That's a big frontier in biology today, but it happened on Earth and it happened pretty quickly. So, and Mars, a near neighbor, to have all the right ingredients, this gives us very high expectations for there to be life in many, many places, possibly in our solar system, but certainly across the galaxy.
What is your sense now, Neil, speaking of Mars, as to when humans can get there?
Yeah, that's complicated. In fact, dare I say, I wrote a whole book on this, Space Chronicles, Facing the Ultimate Frontier. Mars is expensive and it's dangerous, and generally just the urge to want to do something that's expensive and dangerous doesn't ever get funded unless there's some geopolitical reason that drives it. I'm reading the history of civilization, by the way, when I say this, some geopolitical reason or a very clean and clear economic return on that investment. As a result, I don't see it happening as soon as others do, unless some adversary says, we're going to put military bases on Mars, and we say, well, we better get there as fast as possible. And if that were the case, we'd be there in 10 months. No doubt about it.
And I think some of that competitive energy that you're talking about is driving, I think, part of the reason why we're desperate to get back to the moon. That I think there's part of that involved in that, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to be so blunt and admit it to ourselves, but when China started rising up and fulfilling on their promises of what they would accomplish in space, and the moon showed up in their targets and possibly Mars, that became a flame lit beneath us to sort of redouble our efforts that had been languishing for decades. So I don't think that as a driver can be ignored in this case.
And NASA's James Webb telescope has also given us new data about an exoplanet, planet outside of our solar system. Let's talk about this. It's as massive as Saturn, 8 times closer to a star than Mercury is to the sun. Making the temperature on the surface, if I'm getting this right, 1,600 degrees. Why is it important that we have this data?
Well, so it's not so much the data on that specific planet, but the more we gather data on all the exoplanets, we have multiple satellites, multiple telescopes engaged in this search. And in 1995, we knew of one planet orbiting a star outside of our own solar system. Today, that number has risen through 5,000. And the value of JWST because JWST can see the edge of the universe as well as newly born planets like right in front of our noses. The value there is it has the power to be able to analyze the atmospheres of exoplanets. And if you can do that without being able to see the surface, which we don't expect to happen anytime soon, but the atmosphere can be touched by the chemistry of life on the surface, just as Earth's atmosphere has been touched. You would not have oxygen in our air were it not for plant life generating it. And so we call them biomarkers. And so as we comb the catalog of exoplanets, if you were to rank them by which ones you might want to visit first the day that technology ever comes, you can then put the ones at the top of the list, those that have possible chemical evidence for life on their surface. And the James Webb Space Telescope will be a leading instrument to help us sort that catalog.
Do you believe that there is life out there somewhere?
It's not a belief statement. It's given how quickly life started on Earth. It took about 100 million years. Ever since when Earth cooled down enough to maintain complex molecules, now start the clock, 100 million years later, we had single-celled life. And it was single-cell life for a long time before it got complex, before it turned complex. But that happened quickly. So whatever our challenges are in the laboratory, Earth seemed to have no issues getting there. And what are we made of? The most common ingredients in the universe: hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. These are 4 of the 5 most abundant elements of the universe. So
I'm the dim student. Do you think there's life out there?
I would say that if there weren't life, it would be astonishing. Given how common our ingredients are and how quickly life took place here, and how many planets we know are orbiting host stars.
And
it would be astonishing if that were the case.
And what about aliens, and what about UFOs?
Well, to me, any life is alien. You mean aliens like with antennas and ray guns?
It's something more than a cell.
Okay, something that could land here in a spaceship. It could be out there. There's no evidence that would convince an authentic skeptic that we've been visited. And I can tell you this, these fuzzy, monochromatic tic tacs that show up on the Navy restricted airspace in our own atmosphere. By the way, you've seen the high resolution images from a telescope we parked 1 million miles from Earth called the James Webb Space Telescope, looking at the edge of the universe. And the best you have of visiting aliens in our own atmosphere is a fuzzy tic tac. You got to do better than that if you're going to convince an astrophysicist.
You talk about your journey, and you've used this phrase as the path of most resistance, a young black kid from the Bronx becoming an astrophysicist. How tough was that path, and how important do you think it has been for people of color to see Neil deGrasse Tyson in the place that you occupy?
I will invert that and say, how important is it for white people to see me where I am? That's a way more important force operating, especially if that is the community that wields resources and opportunities. And if you see a black homeless person in the street and you never saw a black academically achieved other human being, you're prone to say, oh, that's just their lot in life, as people did for thousands of years, say this and think this when one group enslaves another group, right? But now you'll see me and you'll see the black homeless person, and you have to deal with that. It's like, oh my gosh, there, but for the lack of opportunity goes, you get a lot of people. So I just want to put that up front. It was a path of most resistance because, yes, I was also physically fit and athletic. And you see a black person who is that, particularly in the day, it's, you should be an athlete. And that just simply fulfills people's bin that they would put you because they've never seen your kind do anything else. So there I was, yes, being athletic, but I was in the physics club, in the astronomy club, and taking evening classes at the Hayden Planetarium. I'm doing all this, but it doesn't seem to get noticed by people who are tasked with helping to guide my career path. They don't notice, they notice other kids who whatever, but not me. And my father, who was active with the civil rights movement and a sociologist, he had way worse life encounters than I did dealing with society, and he was never bitter. He said, these people don't know better. That's how they were raised. Have a conversation. Show them what's possible. And so I've carried that with me ever since. I've never been bitter. It just is, and I'll deal with it. It's forced to have me achieve that much more, to the extent that that ever becomes visible and will matter to anyone.
I want to close with one final insight from you, and that is what you call Manhattanhenge.
Oh.
And that is the fact that at certain points of the year, that in this city of New York, that the sun lines up exactly with the east-west grid of Manhattan. And let's take a look.
The sun is going to move diagonally down and to the right, and it's going to pop right into our view. Then it kisses the horizon just over New Jersey, and then it descends. Twilight and then nightfall.
That is so cool. I have seen it. Didn't ever know it was called Manhattanhenge, but it's like Stonehenge in England, right? There are certain times of the year when the sun lines up on that particular.
Yeah, so I visited Stonehenge when I was a kid, when I was 14, on an expedition to study these stone alignments and see what astronomical significance they had. And ever since then, I said, I want to bring some of that back to New York. You know, it's got to be some. So I thought, is there some place in Central Park where there is a tree that would line up with it? And I couldn't find. I said, let me just go blunt and say, let me calculate what day of the year this will happen. And when I first did it, no one was in the streets, and I published the photo. And then at the planetarium, we would post these dates. Now there are tens of thousands of people cluttering the streets. Finally, we get to stop traffic for a reason other than police activity or Con Ed digging holes. So I'm delighted. It's a cosmic shared experience. And Manhattanhenge as a word is now lifted into the Oxford English Dictionary. So I was very happy to learn that.
A 4.5 billion-year-old cosmic rock about to land back on Earth. This spacecraft, as you see there, is carrying a sample of rocks and dust from an asteroid named Bennu. And it's entering Earth's atmosphere at a velocity of 36 times the speed of sound. The sample is going to land in this desolate section of the Utah desert. That's important because Bennu overall is an asteroid the size of the Empire State Building. It has a real chance of smashing into Earth in 159 years. If that actually happens, it would hit Earth with the force of 22 atomic bombs. So NASA is hoping that this sample that they've obtained could help them figure out a way to prevent an impact and learn a lot more, obviously, about asteroids. Out front now, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is the head of the Hayden Planetarium, the host of Star Talk, and he just wrote his latest book, To Infinity and Beyond, A Journey of Cosmic Discovery. So, Neil, I relish all of our conversations. So you've got this asteroid, and, it's incredible. All the math of it. We get on there. You get a little piece of rock all by a robot, and they brought it home. So what can a scientist actually learn from this 4.5 billion-year-old rock that's about to land in Utah?
Well, what we don't know for sure, when you think we would, but we just don't, is what's the structural integrity of asteroids. Only recently, recent decades, did we learn some of them might just be rubble piles gathered together that are masquerading as a solid object. Others are sort of loosely held together. This matters because if you want to deflect an asteroid that might be headed your way, and you nudge one part of it, and it doesn't have the structural integrity to stay together, you can end up breaking off a piece, and your mission would then fail. So by looking at what the material contents of Bennu is through this sample return, which, by the way, we just have to just praise that this is working, okay?
Right.
Look, I gotta say, we launched OSIRIS-REx, this mission, 7 years ago from a moving platform, Earth, intersected a moving target, Bennu, an asteroid. It did a touch and go, grabbed material, came back to Earth, deployed that that capsule, and it keeps going, is going to visit more asteroids. And then people are saying, oh, I don't trust science. I mean, science this. It's like, do you know what we do? Do you have any idea?
I mean, it is pretty incredible. And then there's also the, oh my gosh, we can do that. And what a mess we make of so many much more simple things here at home, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if Bennu does hit Earth, and I know that obviously we can talk about odds, but if it were to, you talk about something 22 times, is that what I said? 22 times the size of, or 22 atomic bombs, let me make sure I say it exactly correctly. What would something like that do to Earth?
Well, it's not an extinction level a hit. Well, if it hits a city, that's really bad. But we would have some good idea of that well in advance, right? By the way, as we get closer to 2182, these odds will improve in the sense that it'll either go to zero or go to certainty. It's not going to still dangle in is it or is it not? And so that's an important first point. So if we know that it's going to hit, then we got to know where it's going to hit. If it hits a city, it takes out the city completely. Mm-hmm. But most of Earth is not city, and most of land is not occupied. So my fear is that if it hits the ocean, then you got a tsunami that could take out an entire coastline, right? Wow. But otherwise, it would destroy a county's worth of land. That's about it.
You are the author of Take Me to Your Leader. And you do write that your child, since you were a child, you have wanted to be abducted by aliens. I just want to go on record, sir, and tell you that I do not share that desire. But I'm glad that you feel that way because, as you said, the real question is not are we alone, it's are we ready? Are we?
Yeah, I think we are, actually, because given the testimonies that we've heard given and that we heard delivered in front of Congress in 2023, 2024, 2025, from whistleblowers and insiders and military officials, ex-military, ex-intelligence officers, it's no longer just the farmer in the back 40, right, commenting on what hovered over their crops, or the revelers coming out of the bar at 2 a.m. So these are people of high rank and all sincere. And so not only have they sort of said that they've got alien body parts and reverse engineered technologies that's sort of consistent with the files that were released. So I'm fine. If that's where we are, all I'm going to ask is, where's the alien?
So that's my question to you.
Is it too much to ask that if you've got him in the back shed, just bring out the alien? Then we would all transition from asking one another, do you believe in aliens, to, well, yeah, of course, the alien's there.
Well, you wrote the book.
People don't say, do you believe
you wrote the book.
in
You're an
elephants, right?
astrophysicist. What do you think? Are they here or have they been among us?
Whatever are the claims, I'm saying, let's assume they're all true. But just start with that assumption. If it's all true, they ought to be able to bring out the alien.
Got it.
And that hasn't happened yet. So I'm just sitting on the couch waiting patiently for that. And we're long past having to require that aliens are something you believe in based on testimony or fuzzy videos. Let's just bring out the alien and get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the points that you make in your book, is that you are a scientist, you are somebody who is evidence-based, so show the evidence. And on that note, the Pentagon, you mentioned this, did release some documents, never before seen is what they call it, UFO files. And this is a big part of what you write about. You said you were, quote, saddened to report that smooth rotating flying saucers are not a thing. The physics just don't work.
Yeah, not for smooth flying saucers. I mean, there are other issues for me with rotating flying saucers. Anytime we show the view out the front window of a flying saucer, the view isn't whizzing by. So how do you have a stationary view looking out the front in a spinning craft? Never made any sense to me. So it doesn't mean other craft couldn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, this is our reference framing.
Right.
But laws of physics matter. We test laws of physics on Earth, and they apply across the universe and across time. If an alien is of this universe, it'll be subject to the same laws of physics.
One of the things that you write about that really got me thinking is that humans share 98+% identical DNA with chimpanzees. And then you ask us to entertain the idea. Imagine if aliens have 5% or 10% or even 25% more intelligence. Along that same vector places us 2% above chimps. Just how advanced could aliens be?
Yeah, the hubris of us to say, let's look in the universe for other intelligent life. Who said we're intelligent? We did. So on a cosmic scale, it may be we are to the aliens as chimps are to us. So for these reasons, I'm happy to grant aliens all manner of advanced technology. But the laws of physics still matter. But the technology, I'll give them wormholes. I'll give them any of that. But one thing that's odd, what would surprise me most is if they bring out the alien and it's humanoid. Okay, that most alien renderings we've seen, it's got a head, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, shoulders, arms, fingers, maybe 4 fingers instead of 5, right? Legs, and they're walking. Okay, most life on Earth doesn't do that, but they're from another planet. So I think of the book as a love letter to our fascination with aliens, manifested in our movies, our culture, our TV, and this is, and we can start there and say, how realistic is this? What can we expect given our imagination and the laws of physics combined? So, yeah, plus it's also a primer on what to say and not to say in your first encounter. You're representing all of humans. You want that to be, the best impression you can leave on them.
We have 30 seconds left. Given this thought experiment that you put in this book, what do you think the meaning of life is?
Oh, I think people search for meaning of life as though it's under a rock or behind a tree, but we have the power to create meaning in life. And for me, I want to learn something today that I didn't know yesterday and spend each day lessening the suffering of others. That's something that we all have the power to do. And maybe aliens want to do that too. We always make them evil. And I think it's because we're projecting our own evil ways onto them, knowing that's how we behaved when we encountered cultures of lower civilization, lesser technology than ourselves. So, yeah, I meaning, we can find it. And if we find aliens and they help us get more meaning out of the universe, more power to us.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, thank you so much for coming on.